As I review the official press conferences, court hearings, and court documentation, nothing concludes that Bryan Kohberger is the sole person responsible for these deaths of the Idaho Four. I see a lot of avoidance committing to Bryan being the only one involved. He's just the only one on trial right now. The only people that are kind of focused on trying to consider him being the only suspect is media and the bloggers. He's just the only one on trial right now. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Twisted Tales of True Crime. Hi, I'm Deborah. On some of my social platforms, I'm known as auntteadee, but here you can call me Deborah. One of the things that has happened the last couple of weeks has been the expert witness that they had on the stand this week regarding the survey and the back and forth with the defense and the prosecution about that madness. But I'm not going to get into that right now because that's not really what I want to focus on, but I will hit it maybe a little bit later. What I want to focus on is that I truly believe that the detectives, the prosecution, never committed to the idea that there was ever just one person that committed these quadruple homicide. Every step of the way, through it, be it a press conference or otherwise, and even in the probable cause affidavit, no official paperwork ever committed and said that Bryan Kohberger was the only one involved in this quadruple murder. I don't believe that Bryan Kohberger even committed these quadruple homicides. I believe that they are trying to extract information probably from Bryan Kohberger because they figure that some kind of way he is associated with other people who helped to do this quadruple homicide. Personally, based on all of the evidence, again, these are just my opinions. You know, this is for entertainment purpose, and everything in my video is just allegedly, just so it's understood that this is my thoughts, my opinions, and me just speculating. So I don't believe, based on the evidence, that Bryan Kohberger committed these murders. One of the things that came out in the documentation, or rather one of the interviews, was Steve said that the wounds do not match.
So I'm serious. I had the opportunity to speak to some of my sources, and I've been told that there were differences in the way that the victims were killed. Some were more severe than the other. And this week we heard the target attack walk back and then reverse it back to it being a target attack. What can you tell us about the targeted attack?
They have told us that it was targeted, but they told us they can't tell who. We asked specifically, and they said, we'll try to get that information to you. And they got back to us a day or so later, and they said, we're sorry, we can't give you that information. But then a day later, we saw in the news that it was not targeted. or they think the whole house was targeted. But
I'll cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Their means of death don't match.
Maddie's
They don't.
and Kaylee's cause of death, it does not match based on the autopsy report.
They don't match.
Would indicate that one of them
He doesn't have to
may
go up
been
the steps.
targeted.
Let's stop playing games, guys. I need somebody to step up and be an alpha. Be somebody to be a leader. Don't make me do it. I don't want to do it.
Steve said the means of their death do not match. The means don't match. Make it make sense. And when he said that the wounds do not match, it made me go back and think about the fact that why would whenever you have like a search warrant, you have to put in that search warrant the kind of things that you're looking for, and those are the items that you're going to confiscate. If you find something else that's relevant, that you think is relevant, you take that with you. They found a gun in the possession of Bryan Kohberger. And that gun that they found in possession of Bryan Kohberger, they took it into evidence. What if, the wounds that don't match and some of the evidence that's associated with these murders or these homicides happen to also be not only a knife, but also a gun. But that may be something that's not generally known to the public. Only someone who is associated with the murders or knows something about the murders or actually did the murders would know that those wounds, one of the wounds could have possibly been a weapon that was a gun of some sort that may have had like maybe a silencer on, because when I listened to the Linder Lane videos, I never heard of a gunshot in the background or a pop or anything. So, but that makes me, think that when Steve said the wounds don't match, and the idea that part of the evidence that the police took in was a gun, were they looking for a possible connection there because one of the wounds that is not publicized was possibly a gunshot wound too? They don't have to publicize that. They can pretty much put out there that, all of them were killed with a knife, but what if one of the other wounds was a gunshot or something like that? They just didn't make that publicly known. They just kind of just put out there the weapon, with because all of them may have been hit with a sharp edge object, but there's no autopsy that's being published too. So that to me is questionable and could possibly be telling. So I've been thinking about that. So let's take a listen to first one of the press conferences that was initially put out there, and just notice that they are the chief is kind of dancing around the idea that there are could be a possibility of multiple suspects.
What piece of evidence really led you all the way from Idaho to the suspect in Pennsylvania?
As I've said in the past, that's part of our investigation, and we won't be releasing that at this time. We will have those answers. We'll have them as soon as we can make those available to you.
Then a quick follow-up and a two-parter. Is our community safe, or is law enforcement still on the search for other suspects who might be involved in this attack?
What I can tell you is we have an individual in custody who committed these horrible crimes, and I do believe our community is safe, but we still need to be vigilant, right? We still have talked about this in the past. We always need to be aware of our surroundings and make sure that we're aware of what's going on.
Hi, Chief. How soon into the investigation did police and law enforcement begin to spot Mr. Kohberger as a potential suspect? And a follow-up, how many tips, if you can say, were specifically related to Mr. Kohberger?
To the tip part, honestly, I can't answer that question, so I'm not even going to speculate on that. On the other part, that's part of our investigation, and it will come out. I'd like the mic to please come right over here.
Thank you. Dana Griffin with NBC News. Can you confirm that Kohberger asked whether or not anyone else had been arrested when he was in custody?
I cannot confirm that, or I'm not sure of that information, but that would still be a part of our investigation.
Did CODIS initially return any hits on this guy?
That's still part of our investigation, and that will come out.
I know that I said that I did not have any footage from the Linda Lane that kind of alluded to a possibility of another gunshots or anything like that, but I took the time out to find a clip where if there was an idea that there could have been a weapon that was a gun, then in the background, at this clip that I'm putting out that I got from another influencer's clip, if you listen at 12:28 and 11 seconds, you hear 3 pops. Take a listen.
No, I'm not. Getting scared. Not to be that guy. I shouldn't park anywhere here. It's only the part of the bottom part of the bottom.
This clip from Bubbly Waters from her videos. I'm gonna leave a link in the description. And the thing that she was talking about something else, but I just noticed that I heard 3 pops that could have been possible bullets or whatnot. I'm not saying it is, and everything that I'm saying is just speculation and alleged, but take a listen.
No, I'm not. Getting scared. Not to be that guy. I shouldn't park anywhere here. It's only the part of the bottom part.
And my niece called me and she was freaking out and she said, "Christy, have you talked to Kaylee?" And I said, "Yesterday, like last night." And she said, something bad happened, and she was just bawling. And I said, "Well, what do you mean? What do you mean?" And she said, "I think Kaylee's dead." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she
all
said,
our stomachs just dropped.
She said there was somebody just called me and they live down there. She said there was a party last night and somebody went in and shot the party up and Kaylee was shot. I was like, what? And I just threw my phone. I started screaming, I started kill.
I'll cut to the chase.
Yeah.
Their means of death don't match.
I cannot get out of my head when Steve says the means of death do not match, period. I know I keep saying the wounds don't match, but he says the means of death do not match. That says to me 2 different weapons. Now, as you can see in the beginning, the news was that Kaylee possibly was shot. But later on, through the coroner and other reports, they were saying that everyone was stabbed. But there's still that lingering information that was put out there by Steve when he says, I'm just going to be frank, their wounds do not match. And then when they did the search warrant yielded a gun. So that makes you think there's evidence out there that we don't necessarily know about, but just if we were to take a leap and think, well, there's more information that we don't know. What if? Well, again, like I'm saying, I'm just speculating. What do you guys think? Do you think that there's possibly a gun involved too?
There's a pending case now in court, and I in my office and the investigators have to live with the restrictions that our Supreme Court places on pretrial publicity. That said, I promise you we will share with you through the court process or otherwise whatever we are allowed to. I just appreciate your patience on that.
And they live down there. She said there was a party last night and somebody went in and shot the party up and Kaylee was shot. I was like, what? And I just threw my phone. I started screaming. I started telling everybody to call Olivia and to get all her roommates on the phone. And I started calling Maddie, and Maddie wouldn't answer, and Maddie wouldn't answer. And I said, no, this can't be, because Maddie would have called me. If Kaylee was shot last night at a party, Maddie or Jack would have called me. Like, no, and I called Kaylee, and it went straight to voicemail. I was calling Maddie, I was calling Jack, it was ringing. I turned on the TV, and I saw it said 1122 King Road. Like, Kaylee's car was in the driveway, Maddie's car was in the driveway, but it was saying an unconscious person. And we're saying, okay, maybe this isn't, like, maybe something happened. So Steve starts calling the police. Steven, our son, started calling the hospital, and he started calling the PD and saying, my name is Gonzalez, and we heard that my daughter Kaylee Gonzalez was killed in an accident, and they said, oh, we can't give you any information, we'll call you back. Well, next thing you know, some more phones started ringing. Our daughters that came running down, 16 and 17 years old, came and said, Mom, somebody just called me and said that Kaylee's dead. And we're like, what? Like, who was it? And she's like, I don't know, it's somebody that said that they're there and Kaylee's dead. And we were like, oh my God, like this can't be, and it's just very, very, very dramatic.
These protocols have to be updated.
The documents show investigators found a knife, a pocket knife, a Glock 22 handgun, 3 empty magazines, and a black face mask. They also took a book that underlined something on page 118. It's unclear what that book was or what was underlined, but a criminal psychology book was also listed among other items taken. The unsealed search warrants also mention authorities took a green, leafy substance in a green container and plastic bag. The documents show they took 63 items total. Earlier this week, a Pennsylvania court unsealed a search warrant detailing other items taken from Kohberger and his family home in Pennsylvania. Those items included a flashlight, 4 medical-style gloves, a T-shirt, and a black...
I wonder why they picked up the gun. They collected all that stuff. I don't know if they figured that maybe that was a part of evidentially things that they were looking for, both a knife and a gun or so. But as you notice that the timestamp on when I heard those 3 pows, those were like shortly after 12, nowhere near the time of the murder, allegedly. So I'm just curious. Remember the DoorDash? We can't really say that a DoorDash order is a sign of life. And you really can't say whether or not the TikTok is a sign of life when it comes to Xana. Who knows if the voice that Dylan heard was really Xana. It was even questionable inside of the probable cause. Remember? In this part of the PCA, it says, a short time later, Dylan Morton says she heard who she thought was Gonzalez say something to the effect of, there's someone here. A review of the records obtained from forensic download of Kernodle's phone showed this could also have been Kernodle, as her cellular phone indicated she was likely awake and using TikTok app at approximately 4:12. Dylan Morton stated that she'd opened her door a second time and she heard what she thought was crying coming from Kernodle's room. Dylan Mortensen then says she heard a male voice say something to the effect, it's okay, I'm going to help you. Giving this information along with last week's hearings when the prosecutor was questioning the defense expert on surveys, it seems that there is no stalker. The prosecution just allowed this mayhem to go on, and it built up a bias in the community. And so, last week's testimony makes me question also the relative truths that's within the PCA, because Bryan Kohberger's lawyer, Ann Taylor, said that, her assistants communicated that there are a lot of untruths that are in that PCA.
going on, and we've always said from the very beginning that we're the official message that comes out, and to pay attention to what we're putting out there to the press.
False. That Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You know that to be false.
Which one?
That Mr. Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims.
Yes, I was trying not to say that because.
But you knew that was false.
I did.
Yes. And so you have now, for anybody who had never heard that before, that question is now planted into them, unqualified representation that Mr. Kohberger stalked one of the witnesses, and that's false.
That's false. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Any more tough ones ahead, I'm sure.
For sure. For sure. And we all need to give each other grace.
Thank you.
I will end by saying this. Our defense team firmly, and I mean firmly, believes in Mr. Kohberger's innocence. And right now, he's being held to have a trial in a county that believes that he is guilty. In this country, we pride ourselves on a jury system that doesn't stand for that. In this moment, I see that you have two choices. You can let us continue and do comparative surveys as planned. Or you can maintain the stay, and at the venue motion, you will hear that the data for Latah County shows a presumption of prejudice, but you will not have comparative surveys to fully inform the court. As you consider this, there is absolutely nothing that gets risked if you change venue.
As you see that the PCA has some untrue things in there, and also we know that the victims were not stalked. The big delays in turning over the evidence or discovery to Bryan Kohberger's lawyers, and continually trying to procrastinate when it comes to giving over the evidence in discovery. I think it has a lot to do with trying to have Bryan Kohberger spend as much time behind jail, giving him time to think. Because a lot of times when people spend time behind bars, they will cop to pleas that have nothing to do with their participation in the crime. It's just has to do with they want to try to lessen their time behind bars. I think when the prosecution raised the bar to the idea of the death penalty, it was the prosecution way of putting pressure on Bryan Kohberger. The evidence is just not there. There's no way that you can have DNA on a knife sheet that, especially on the button part that's brass, that if taken after 4 hours, the DNA is compromised. So that's suspect. So that leads me, if I was a juror, to believe that, yes, it's a possibility that the knife sheet was planted and also the DNA. And also when the prosecution put in the PCA, alluded to the fact, well, it wasn't really the prosecution, it was actually the detective said that he was doing he got the search warrant to try to prove that the possibility of Bryan Kohberger stalking or surveilling the victims. And that turned out to yield nothing at all. It was a nothing burger. And then here we hear that this rumor about stalking that was perpetuated by the media and some of the bloggers is completely false. And the fact that the defense team adamantly stands by their client, it gives you room for pause. So what I want to do is I want to continue this series, dialoguing about the logic behind all the current evidence. And I'm just going where the evidence takes me. That clip that I showed you that had those 3 booms, that was an enhancement of the audio. Like I said, I don't know if that audio is valid or not. But there's a lot of things that are going on in this case that are just genuinely suspect. Let's explore together. What do you think? What do you think about when Steve says the means of the wounds do not match the means? So what means did they use in order to do those killings? Was it multiple types of weapons? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you everyone for supporting my channel and walking with me through the thought process as it pertains to this case. It's a very important case, if you ask me, with a lot of precedents that could possibly be set. If you want to support the channel, my information's in the description, and also hit that like button so that it could help other people have access to this particular video. And I look forward to sharing with you my thoughts on the next segment. Thank you again. Bye.